Hello, and welcome back to Body, Mind, and Tao. Of course, I'm Chris Walker, and today I wanted to touch on some ideas that some recent experiences brought to my mind, and it connected to some thoughts I have on health and well-being and kind of the health and fitness world in general, and some tools that we use on a regular basis in those arenas. And something that I learned about it for myself. So I'm going to be kind of tying those things together. So the basic thought is, how much structure do we think helps us live well, and when does it begin living our lives for us? So you think about fitness programs and things like that and how structured they can get. And there's also other areas of life, and that's why I wanted to touch on it, because we are improving our lives and our lifestyle, along with improving our health through nutrients and exercise. So the thing that I had happen recently that made me think of all this is I have been making a concerted effort in simplifying my life and really trying to detach from relying on a phone as much as we do in this modern world. It's amazing how difficult it can be, even for somebody that goes on walks and observes nature. It can still pull you into that realm. And I know that there's a lot of discussions about detoxing from social media and phones and various things like that. And I'm not necessarily going to go specifically into that. Now, if something like that really does help you to detox every so often, then I don't see any reason not to do that. But this is not another thing to schedule in your day per se. It's more of transforming things that you already do into something a little bit simpler to live with. So for me, what I decided to do was carry notebooks with me to make notes and to also journal anything that comes to my mind in any way. And when you do these kinds of notebooks or travel journals, etc., you have to design it around what your personal needs are. And I know for myself that I have a variety of things that I kind of use it for. So it's not one specific thing, but there's no right or wrong answers with it. It's just however it works for you. So, and on top of it, I'm a very, I like things a little bit simpler, I guess is the best way to put it. So for me, for years and years and years, having a large purse to carry around, because that's what women do, doesn't fit my lifestyle in general, and especially with how simple I like to live. It just ends up being a big empty, what I call cave, a big empty cave to fill with receipts and weird stuff that you really don't want to carry anyways. So the combination of simplifying my life and organizing differently to kind of detach from social media and just tech in that sense on your phone in general was important to me. The other thing, I don't know if you notice this, but a lot of the tech, you get like 5 different apps to do one thing that you need. And so that's something that I was kind of looking at too, is just simplifying that whole thing and coming back into the now, my experiences now. And there's a lot of really interesting research on how organization, how your brain kind of does it, what, amounts of it are good and what can be too much. And there's also research on when you write things down, it has a different effect on your memory than it does typing it into an app. So I'm not going to go deep into those ideas, but if you're curious about it, it would be a wonderful thing to kind of go into and learn a little more about. If you're like me and you kind of really enjoy the background of information so you absorb it better, go ahead and do that, because that's totally my thing too. So I understand it. And that's why I kind of referred to it a little bit, because some people like to dig into that kind of stuff. So there's no right or wrong with this episode. It's just what exactly works for you on these ideas. So what I did is I have my notebooks. I have little mini notebooks and I have larger notebooks. And you can assign that kind of stuff to whatever you want. You can have more than one, just one, whatever. So the mini notebook is great if you just want something you can throw in a pocket and carry with you. And you can just make a quick note and then go on your business. And like I said, it could be anything, an observation, a note of a to-do list, a reminder of something you need to pick up shopping, a unique idea you had, an observation, anything that you want, even writing down something relating to your health, could be how you feel, how food or an exercise routine or whatever it is, how it helps you, things that you need to maybe adjust. It doesn't matter. It's all up to you. So part of that, I decided to shop for a more utilitarian, but still a nice bag to put my stuff in. And that took me on an interesting road, because purses for women, they can be a little bit oversized. Now, again, if you like to carry a lot of items with you, because that feels secure to you, there's nothing wrong with that. I am not somebody to carry a lot of lotions and makeup with me. I'm a little more simple, like I said. So, like I mentioned, it becomes a big empty cave with lots of receipts in it and not a lot else. And so it was interesting just looking for something that was more simplified, that fit better. And there were two extremes. It was either very scaled back, where you didn't have any dividers or pockets, or like more pockets than I can use. Which brings me to another idea about this. We can overstructure, and that's where it comes up to some of the diet advice or health advice in general. We like to consume a lot of information, and it can kind of become burdensome in general, because we have so many good tips that we think we could incorporate, and if we collect too many of those, they can almost conflict with each other and be too structured. And then, of course, like my purse example, when you have a purse that doesn't have enough structure to it, the same can happen if you're not at least having some mindfulness of where you want to be and what you're doing today or in this moment. And so that is the challenge that we have. But if we look at the natural world, and I like to use the natural world as examples because it teaches us individually according to what we see or learn from it. So you look at the natural world, and certain aspects of it look really organized, and other things about you're like, how does that work out? It doesn't make any sense. And yet you know that somehow it all blends together. So there's that really unique blend of having structure and not having structure. Everything has its place. Everything has what you could say, for a lack of a better word, a job or something that it does that helps everything else around it, not just itself. And that's the fascinating thing about observing the natural world, is the majority of the time, even though animals and plants are helping themselves, the majority of the time, not all the time, there's a lot of factor of when it helps themselves, it also helps others by how they do it or how they interact with others. The most basic example of that would be a bee collecting pollen for honey and other things that are needed in the hive. And though they might collect those things from the flowers for themselves, at the same time, they are spreading pollen from one plant to another and, helping the plants to grow. So that is a really interesting thing right there. It's helping each other and also helping ourselves at the same time. So the other thing is I, for myself in the past, this is one thing that can become overstructured, at least for me. And it starts out with good intentions and then it just kind of crumbles. And my ideas swing back to the idea of the apps. There are these wonderful apps with things that we can use on them. And so I tend to get mixed feelings and kind of conflicted about apps that track your meals. Because sometimes it's useful to see exact calories and nutrients and stuff, but sometimes it can feel a little burdensome to write all of those details down or look at it all. So it's, to me, I think a good way of doing that, if you really want to do that, is maybe just have a simple notepad that you kind of jot down your meals and try to look at those things without really having anything tell you the calories or whatever right offhand, and think to yourself, how does that look on paper without being judgmental with yourself? Where are the gaps? And start asking yourself personal questions. What is working? What isn't working? What do you think could be refined? And then maybe research information online, or if you're curious, plug in the numbers into an app or something to see the finer detail. But I wouldn't necessarily rely heavily on the app unless it's really giving you something that you need. Some people do really well with that structure, and that's fine. But I don't want people to get lost and feel like they cannot manage their well-being if they're not using something like that. So that's just another example of structure versus not having structure. What is the line between that for you? Where do you feel like structure is great, and where do you feel like it can kind of take over and you're no longer enjoying the process? The other thing I want you to consider is, why do you seek out the amount of structure that you originally seek for? When you pick up an app, what are you looking for in that app? Is it ease? Does it look nice, or help you out in information to have more information that you put down? What is it about that whole process that you found intriguing or alluring when you first started using it? Then the other question is, what happened that you stopped using it? Because we can talk about motivation all day as much as we want, and we can try to do little tricks for motivation. But let's make some of that a little bit less of a, what's the best word I'm thinking of? Something that is like kind of a heavy task, where we're kind of pushing ourselves really hard to do it. What is it that you're attracted to, that amount of attention to it, that maybe you kind of fall away from doing it in the future? What is going on there that happens? So when we say we have lack of motivation, there is always something going on underneath that. Now, when we are talking about our health and improving our health and nutrition, we often think that we have to take this really structured stance to it. And some of that is just trusting your inner compass a little bit better. And some of it is just we're afraid that we're going to fail at it if we don't create that type of structure. But like I said, there's other ways of doing it that fit our style and what we want to do a little bit better. So that's just one example in the health world, but it applies to every area of life. And the thing is that our lives are complex, and having a lot of structure helps us to feel like we have a handle on it. But maybe, like I was stating with my notebooks and choosing a bag that fit my needs better, because I learned just like 2 main compartments and a few, maybe 2 or 3 at the most, smaller pockets is enough for me, not 5 or 6 or whatever different little areas. But everybody is unique and their needs are unique. So there's not a right or wrong answer to any of this. So you have to really think about it. What is it about the structure that you're creating that you feel like you need it? And is it truly helping you in your life, or are you falling away from it? And what is underneath both of those responses? When you start answering these questions, you'll realize that some of the answers you gave have an underlying consistency in other areas of your life where you feel like you're not accomplishing something. And always remember to leave room in your schedule for doing things that are enjoyable or relaxing, that have outside of maybe the structure of going to a class on 1 day a week or something. The structure is not as rigid. Keep that in mind, that you want to also pick up things that you enjoy, because if you are constantly structured and don't have enjoyment in life, that's going to create tension also. So this week, pick a system in your life. Ask yourself whether it's quietly supporting you or whether you're started serving the system or the structure that you have chosen. And start kind of contemplating it without judgment. There's no judgment in any of it. When we fail at something or we perceive that we're failing at it, there's something underneath that is either causing us to not have attention in it, or there's a reason why we feel like we just want to fail in it. Whatever that is, it's not anything necessarily bad. It's just, what is our attention? What is it trying to bring to the surface and make you aware of? That's all that it is. So I want you to keep that in mind. And I hope my ideas really help you. I hope that these thoughts help you to kind of consider some of the things that are going on in your life. And instead of being angry or frustrated or giving up on yourself all as much as you may have been in the past, to just take a break and take one thing that really has meaning to you and sit down and ask yourself these questions. What does this mean for me? What is it trying to tell me? Where is the structure helping or hurting me? And most of all, I hope you have a great week or a great evening or a great day, no matter what it is. Thank you for joining me today, and we will talk again later.